Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem will head to Capitol Hill this morning for the first of two congressional oversight hearings, her first since two U.S. citizens were fatally shot by immigration agents in Minneapolis. Noem will testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee at 9 a.m. Eastern and then appear tomorrow before the House Judiciary Committee. The hearings take place as the Department of Homeland Security remains unfunded, shut down through the regular 2026 appropriations process. Democrats are expected to press her on enforcement tactics, civil liberties, and migrant detention policies, while some Republicans are also set to question her leadership, as well as disaster relief delays. I want to bring in White House economics reporter for Semaphore, Eleanor Mueller. Don't let her title fool you. She is all over Capitol Hill as well. So let's talk about this hearing, the fact that there are even Republicans, including Republican Senator Thom Tillis, who is also on this committee, who are saying Noem needs to step down. I mean, this is not going to be one of your typical Democrats grilling Republicans playing defense. I think it's going to be messy and intense.
Yeah, our team did a lot of reporting last month on which cabinet secretaries would be likely to leave before the election. I think the consensus is either folks leave within the next couple of weeks or at this point they leave after November, right? You don't want anyone departing in the lead up to elections. And Kristi Noem's name comes up a lot. You know, I think that there's an appetite within the Trump administration to distance itself from some of the immigration enforcement pushback that they've been getting. But then there's also questions around her conduct atop this agency, you know, her use of border funds to purchase luxury jets, her relationship with her top advisor, Corey Lewandowski. And so for all of those reasons, Tillis and others bring her up frequently as someone they could see hit the exits first.
And I think it really flies in the face of the Trump administration strategy, well documented, that when any of its cabinet secretaries are, I think for valid reasons, in the hot seat doing controversial things, private jets included, that they have taken a posture of no scalps. We put our support behind them. Maybe they get a little bit of a finger wag behind the scenes, skipped over in a cabinet meeting, as we saw Noem have happened to her, but they are not losing their posts. I wonder if that's a reality check because they know they probably would have a tough time getting anybody else confirmed into these positions, or what you think the mindset is. They don't want to show weakness. I think it's a mix of both, right?
I think it's a mix of both. It's fair to say that, you know, these are all actions that would have earned a dismissal in any other administration, Republican or Democratic. That has not been the case here. We've seen House Democrats say that if they take back the chamber in the elections, you know, impeaching Noem is one of their top priorities. And that's notable because they haven't been willing to go there as far as impeaching Trump. You know, for the consensus seems to be they want to focus on investigations, other types of oversight before going that route. And so the fact that they are interested in focusing on that when it comes to her, I think indicates to us just how far this has been pushed.
Look, I do think that in an administration that has seen cabinet secretaries mired in controversy, Noem is, I think, the most prominent of them. I mean, to come out in the aftermath of the shootings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good and call them domestic terrorists when clearly they were not that, and everyone can see the video, Republicans even saying that that was a problem, I do think it puts her in a different category, and it means that today is going to be that much more high stakes. It's, of course, not even the only story on the Hill, because lawmakers in both parties are bracing for a showdown in Congress this week, a different one, after President Trump began military strikes on Iran. The Senate is going to vote on a bipartisan war powers resolution sponsored by Senator Tim Kaine and Rand Paul to halt further military action without congressional approval, though that likely faces a presidential veto if it were to pass. Some Republicans support the measure, including Paul, as I mentioned, who's warning against a prolonged conflict as Iran launches retaliatory strikes, and the Pentagon confirmed 6 U.S. troops have been killed so far. The president, of course, warning that there could also be more American casualties, which makes this different than what happened in Venezuela, different than the B-52 bombings that were undertaken in Iran even last summer. Do you anticipate that the War Powers Resolution actually has any traction? I think it could attract some interesting votes, but it definitely can't get past a presidential veto, even if it were to pass the Senate and the House.
Absolutely not. And I think at this point, we don't even know if it would pass the Senate. You know, a lot of Republican senators who voted for the similar resolution on Venezuela told us last night that they were waiting until after the briefing. But one of them, Josh Hawley, said explicitly, I will not be voting for something like this. Another Republican senator, John Curtis, said, you know, maybe I would have liked a vote on this before the strikes happened, but now that they have, I have no interest in putting any kind of brakes on the administration. And so it seems like this is something that's at least more popular than Venezuela within the Republican Party, and we're not going to, you know, get a ton of pushback.
I also do think it puts Democrats rather in the position of arguing not that they oppose the what, in this instance, striking Iran, taking out Khamenei. They oppose the how, which is more of a process story and I think more difficult to gain resonance for, right? Despite the fact that it is unconstitutional on its face to launch a war without going first through Congress.
100%. And I think that we're going to see a lot of interesting comments coming out of these briefings today. The House's briefing is at 3:30. The Senate's is at 5. And we've seen, for example, Congressman Warren Davidson. He's a Republican from Ohio. He's a libertarian. He's someone who has always been a non-interventionist, America first. He's been tweeting more in the last couple of days than I've ever seen him tweet about something like this. You know, we posted Secretary of State Marco Rubio's explanation of why the attacks counted, you know, were in response to an imminent threat, quote unquote, on the United States, questioning that explanation and, you know, saying that he's going to have a lot of questions for these officials in these briefings. And so we'll see what the consensus is when they walk out of there.
We'll see what the consensus is, though I have heard from several lawmakers that part of the problem in these briefings is that administration officials tend to filibuster. And so a lot of the questions that are rightly there to be asked don't actually have the time to be asked because there's only a set period that these administration officials can be there for. Unclear if that's what happens today, but certainly a lot of members with a lot of questions about why this happened now and what it looks like going forward.
Absolutely.
White House economics reporter for Semafor, Eleanor Mueller, always thank you for coming on, sharing your reporting.